Welcome back to Tales Arcane, and to another one of our conversational D&D TTRPG videos. The topic of today's video comes from a comment. The commenter wanted to hear more about plot twists and how to do a big plot reveal across the course of a long campaign. Now that's a great topic because I think a lot of us DMs and GMs really want to do plot twists. We've all seen Critical Role and Matt Mercer amazing his players with 6,000 sessions into the campaign, an incredible plot twist or reveal. That's all good stuff, but it is harder to pull it off at your own tables than you might think. At least from my own experience, landing a good big twist can be difficult for a number of reasons. So in this video, I'm going to talk about kind of three key areas. Firstly, why do we want to do plot twists? Why should we do them? Secondly, how to do them, or how I would approach this. And finally, some points on how not to do plot twists, because there's a lot that can go wrong when you're planning your plot twist and when you're delivering the final reveal. And so I want to cover some of the mistakes that I've made that hopefully you can avoid in your own games. So, to begin with, why do we do plot twists? The main thing here is that a plot twist, in my opinion, should be for the benefit of the players. Ultimately, it should give them a more memorable, rewarding, exciting experience. And often, Dungeon Masters run the risk of doing plot twists because they want to kind of show the players how clever they are, or they want to shock the players and kind of reveal some big twist about the world that they've built around the players. That's a perfectly noble aspiration, there's nothing wrong with that, but it is worth bearing in mind that at the end of the day, the players need to enjoy the twist. The players need to go, feel that they're having a better session or a campaign as a result of it. And if they don't, then you've kind of wasted your time as a DM, because you won't actually find it very satisfying if your players are sitting staring at you blankly instead of getting excited or shocked by the big twist. So I think the best thing to do when you're sitting down to plan a big plot reveal is to really make sure that whatever it is that is going to be revealed, it focuses around things the players care about and things that really affect the players. If your reveal is perhaps a big twist about the deep secret lore of your world, let's say that, you've written the sort of known history of the world, but then you've also written the secret true history of the world and the setting that the players are in. And at some point they're going to find out that the Dark Lord was actually a hero, and this great hero from myth and legend was actually a Dark Lord, or there's a big switcheroo. That's only impactful if the players actually really care about the deep lore of your world and are furnished well in advance with all the details that they need. So if you're going to do that kind of twist, you really need to make sure that your players are kind of on board with that direction. If your players are excited about running around, fighting monsters, earning a reputation and getting gold to upgrade their player base or something, and they're not really focusing with they might be paying attention to the lore, but they're not focusing on all the details that you need them to focus on to understand this plot twist. Maybe steer away from the kind of twist that would need them to really pay attention to the deep lore of your world. I love world building, but I never do reveals where the players have to understand some intricacy of the world's history that I mentioned 10 sessions ago. I always think about plot twists where it really impacts the players right now in the present. NPC betrayals, artifacts that the players are carrying, doing something that they didn't expect them to do. For example, the players might have picked up an item somewhere along the way, and that item eventually turns out to be a tracking device essentially planted on them by the BBEG, and that's why the BBEG is always one step ahead. Now that works really nicely because when the players eventually find that out, it's something very physical and practical and pertinent to their experience. They can say, here's this object that we are perhaps holding in our hands, and we now understand that it does something that we didn't realize it did. We also now understand that all those times previously when the BBEG caught up with us or foiled our plans, we now understand why that was happening. It recontextualizes our understanding of the past. And because we've now discovered it, we get an advantage. We can chuck this thing away, or we can plant it somewhere else, and now we can draw the BBEG off course. DMs sometimes forget that the twist should ultimately further the plot and perhaps give the players a chance to get an edge or get ahead in the game. It shouldn't just be something where you as a DM get to feel clever because you've kind of bamboozled your players. Okay, second point is how to actually do a plot twist. Now, the first thing to think about is the timescale across which you're going to play the plot twist out. If you're going to do this across 1 or 2 sessions, maybe it's like a very, the players meet an NPC at the start of one session, and by the end of that session, they found out that that NPC is actually a villain. Very simple. But in those circumstances, I wouldn't worry too much about laying lots of groundwork and giving the players the clues to maybe work it out themselves along the way. That's a low-stakes situation. There's not a huge amount of investment from the players. It's fine to just do a little rug pull towards the end of the session. Alternatively, if you want to do something where that NPC comes in session 1, and in session 100 there's the reveal that that NPC is actually a villain, that's the stuff where you need to lay the groundwork. You need to give the players, if not a fighting chance of figuring it out for themselves, at the very least a strong sense that the clues were always there, and in retrospect they can see that. This is something you'll have probably come across in media, in books and in long-running TV shows, where a twist comes along and it doesn't feel earned. You can just tell that there was never really a chance for the viewer or the reader to work it out for themselves along the way. I'm a huge fan of the original Sherlock Holmes stories, and one of the things that makes those stories so effective is that although you can't always quite work it out yourself in advance, when the big reveal comes in the very final act of the story, you always look back and say, I was actually quite close. I kind of see how it could have all fitted together. All the pieces were given to you, even if you weren't given the key to fit the pieces together. And I think that is tremendously important. So if you're going to have, let's say, for example, an NPC betrayal, you need to have some behavior that the NPC exhibits that, yes, maybe seems innocent when it's happening, but in retrospect the players go, that's when he was sending letters to the BBEG, that's when he was trying to keep us from going to that place too early because he didn't want us to find that thing that, it's like you have to be very conscious in advance of exactly what this NPC's motives are, why they're doing what they're doing, and act upon them, even when sometimes you run the risk of revealing things too early. That's an important part that I will come into in more detail in the sort of what not to do section. But you really want to avoid a situation where if the players, do start to suspect something, you kind of unfairly edit things behind the scenes to make sure they can't find it out. But I'm a great believer in, if the players work out in advance what the twist is, that's not a bad thing. That's actually in some ways, it's a great thing because it means your players are paying attention and they are so engaged with your worlds and with your NPCs that they've put the pieces together and figured out what the twist is. And B, it's so much fun for the players because the players don't feel that they've spoiled the twist. They feel that they've uncovered a mystery. They feel great about themselves, and it often is a moment of real triumph for the players when perhaps they work out that the NPCs betrayed them, or what this item secretly does, or something more lore related. They find out that this ancient lich was actually the hero of old, and the hero of old was actually the ancient lich. If the players put that together, they're going to feel great about that. So don't, in my opinion, it's best not to try to retcon things at the last minute because you don't want the players to find out things too early. It's hard for me to give you really clear advice on specifics of your twist, because obviously the twist will be very dependent on the setting and the characters and the adventure, the story you're telling. But the main kind of overall tip, I suppose, that I would offer is that whatever the twist is, it should recontextualize things that the players care about. Reveals and twists only work if they impact the players on like a genuine emotional level. If it's, if an NPC betrays the players and the players didn't care who that NPC was, then it's not much of a reveal. And just a good example of this, in one of my own games, very, very early on, I had a big reveal that this dragon the players encountered was actually this ancient king who had gone missing. And I'd laid a lot of groundwork about this ancient king, Talon Aurelius. And finally I did the big reveal and I said, the dragon you met was Talon Aurelius. And one of my players turned around and went, who's Talon Aurelius? And You know, bless him, he wasn't, he had been paying attention to most of it, but what he was paying attention to was the stuff that really felt important session to session, the quests they're going after, the quest giver, the dangers from different factions the players are interplaying with. You know, at no point did he realise that it was important for him to remember who some ancient king was. And that was a real moment for me when I went, oh man, that's a twist for me, not a twist for the players. And there's nothing wrong with doing stuff for you as a Dungeon Master. You have to have fun too, but I guarantee you, you will have more fun when the players are having fun as well. Again, this is why I always recommend people avoid doing twists that rely on big lore drops and players understanding the ancient history of the world they're in, because so often that stuff doesn't really feel super relevant to players session to session. What players care about is the NPCs they're interacting with, the world that they are shaping and acting within and changing over time, and when the twist really impacts their place in the world and the people around them, that's when they're going to have a really positive response. And finally, I think that the main thing I would say is just remember not to rely on plot twists too much. Don't overuse them. The thing about a plot twist is it's fundamentally something that the Dungeon Master is doing, not the players. It's something where the Dungeon Master is keeping bits of information back, revealing bits of information at a certain point. Personally, I think that can work, but it's dangerous territory, because as soon as big plot events are happening because the Dungeon Master is pushing them forward rather than the players, that's where things can start to get a bit tricky. That's where players can start to feel a little bit like their agency is being taken away from them. I think the best plot reveals are the ones where along the way the players can work it out for themselves potentially and perhaps trigger the reveal themselves. There's nothing better than the players working out in advance that someone in their crew is potentially a traitor and then going through extensive investigations to unearth and unmask the traitor. And maybe it's still a twist when they find out who it was, but it's a twist that they initiated. And I think those are usually more impactful and more fun, reliably, than a big twist where it's just one day the Dungeon Master, Deus Ex Machina style, just turns around and says, ta-da! Here's something you never knew, never could have known, and now I've revealed it. It's like, that's all Dungeon Master and no player. So keep putting your players at the centre of everything you do, especially when it comes to plot twists. Don't overuse plot twists, and when you do use them, be flexible in how you deploy them and allow them to evolve over time. That's pretty much everything I have for today. I hope I kind of conveyed something useful in response to this comment. And if you have any other topics you want to see discussed in these more relaxed conversational videos or in the more structured, scripted long-form videos, drop me a comment here or anywhere else and I will try to take note of it and include it in a future video. Anyway, thank you for watching. Stay safe.